as you saw in the different groups, we have a lot of work to do to reskill or upskill the competencies of our team. So let's share some strategies to do that. We can implement several training initiatives to meet this goal. But for example, we can offer like practical training programs and specialized courses, as Nikki said before. But these provide focused learning in areas like advanced translation or interpreting tools or industry-specific skills. We choose this kind of formal training. Sometimes the best option for this kind of competencies, right? For the technical competencies. Additionally, we can use the digital learning platforms to give our team flexibility. These platforms allow them to learn at their own pace, which is important when we work remotely, as most of us or the majority of us, or even if we work in different time zones, because it's very difficult to join the whole team to do an online training. You have free courses in different platforms, as Nikki said before, but YouTube even, you have a lot of material in YouTube. You have paid courses in Coursera, Udemy, Nimsty, and then Jan is going to tell more about what Beluga is doing. And finally, we have to think about the importance to do things on the job training, right? Involving the staff in special projects or cross-functional tasks. That helps a lot. That helps them to apply new skills in the real life, in real time, and accelerate the learning process. So it's very important to complement the different actions. The expected outcomes of these kind of initiatives are addressing immediate skills shortage and boosting employee morale and loyalty. They are going to feel motivated, and then they are going to value the efforts that you are doing as a company to keep them trained. When employees feel they are growing and evolving, we talk about that the last class, they are going to stay in the company, they're going to be more engaged and committed with their goals, and they're going to be more productive. But we don't need to stop here. Creating a continuous learning culture is our must, right? And conducting talent gaps analysis to identify where the upskill is needed most is something that we need to do in a regular basis. These initiatives should be aligned with our HR plan, the first class, and the talent management strategy. They can't be like isolated there. They have to have like a clear link, and we should explain that to the employees, maybe in the performance management processes. We must also promote ongoing professional development, ensuring that learning is an ongoing journey for them, not only one-time event, like a special event in the year. So finally, leadership needs to be involved, as in every action that we plan in the HR team. We can do it alone if the leaders don't support us. They must actively engage in these strategies, ensuring that the training aligns with business goals and foster a culture of growth, and not only with business goals, even with their area goals. They need to help us to translate this information to the people in the company. Next one, Nikki. So how do we learn? It's a psychological or pedagogical model that is very helpful, and I recommend you to keep it in mind. I'm going to introduce this model, 70-20-10. It's for development and learning, of course, and it's a simple but powerful framework to use because it guides us how to plan and upskill any competence in the organization with like a very complete action plan. First, the 70% of learning comes from experience learning. It's the most important thing. People need to practice and to put in action what they are learning. So this is about learning through on-the-job experiences. They need to translate it in their daily task. Taking on challenges, assignments, solving problems, and figuring things out in real time is a must to learn any new thing. It's where the majority of our skills development happens, because nothing beats hands-on experience. And we need to, it's a very psychological terminology, but we need to have like significant learnings. We need to like hook this new concept to our previous experience. So it's very important to consider that when we're trying to develop a competence, because remember that competence is not about knowing the topic. It's about how can you put this concept in action. If not, you don't have the competencies. You don't have the competence developed. You only have the theory, but you can do it. So it's not a competence. The next 20% come from social learning. This is when we learn from others. We are social. As human beings, socializing sorry, is essential. We need others to learn. We learn from our mother and our relatives in our first step, right? So never forget that. So mentoring, coaching, receiving feedback, and collaborating with peers and leaders is like a very good strategy to learn new things. It's about observing, sharing ideas, discussing strategies, and making learning a social and making of the learning a social and dynamic experience. We have to put our feelings in the learning process. Finally, 10% come from formal learning. So you can see that it's very, very little, the impact of the formal training. This includes structured education programs like courses, workshops, or learning. And while this planned learning is important, it's very, very, very small. Remember that. So focusing on these three areas at the same time, experiential learning, social learning, and formal learning, we create a well-rounded approach to continuous growth, ensuring that we are learning not just through structured programs and theory, but from the real world and the real challenges that we have nowadays. So we have to consider that when we plan a training program for our people to develop skills and competencies, we need to invest our budget wisely, because formal pieces of training are not enough to develop the skill. Next one, Nikki. Okay, why it is important? This model is important because it encourages a holistic approach to development by combining the three areas: real-world experience, social interaction, and formal training. It emphasizes that most learning, 70%, come from practical experience, which means that hands-on work, challenge, we said that before, the examples, challenging, stack, and problem solving are the main ways to develop this kind of skills. And the model also highlights the value of learning from others. So try to foster this collaborative learning environment in your team is essential. Let me, I am seeing it very, very, very little. By following this model, we ensure that we foster a continuous learning model in our teams, a dynamic work environment, and we ensure that development doesn't stop after a course or workshop, because if not, nothing is going to happen. I was tired of hearing that of different companies and teams that in which I work as an HR manager. Yes, the course was excellent, but I couldn't do anything after that in my daily work. Oh, Mom, I don't know if it was for me. You need to help people to make this connection with the real life, because training happens every day on the daily job and through the interactions that we have. And that's the real challenge, to have like a holistic model to offer to the teams and to your leaders, of course. How to implement this model? The other one, Nikki? You need to balance the practical experience, the social learning, and the formal training in these percentages that we talked before. So if you're talking about a competence, for example, a strategic mindset for leadership, try to put or try to develop or create a plan considering everything. Which kind of formal space are you going to provide them? Which is going to be the social space to interact and discuss about, for example, which problem they have to translate this strategic mindset to the people. And then let's bring them the opportunities to put it in practice. Try to think a competence and the three like pillars that you have to put in practice to develop the skill. So encourage experimental learning. The most you can do it in your team, the better. You need to give them, your employees, the opportunities to do that. So create the opportunities, participating in new projects, or maybe working in different areas only in an agile model, or for a specific task. We had in a telecommunication company that I used to work, we had a service day. The service days was like go to the other area and live the reality. Work for a day, for example, in a call center, to understand the reality of the person or the area that you are working with. And it was very, very enrichful, because this pushed everyone to be out of our comfort zone, right? And helps to learn the real world problems and how to solve it, and to suggest maybe improvements in a process, because you are linked, your processes are linked with this area in particular. How we need another thing we need to foster is the social learnings, promoting a culture of mentorship, feedback, continuous feedback, not only the formal feedback instances is a must. Encourage the team to share the knowledge that they have and exchange feedback in every level. You don't need to be the boss of the person to share feedback. And sometimes it happens all the time that this like change of communication that doesn't help, because the leaders talk each other to solve problems that are happening between members of their team, is not useful, and it brings a lot of misunderstanding. So try to foster the communication in all the levels of the company and provide constructive feedback. It's constructive is important, because if not, it can be perceived as a criticism more than something to build together, right? And mentorship, of course, if you can do it, it's great. We talk about that. And finally, let's remember that you can offer a 10% of formal training and structured programs, but it's essential only in these cases that you need to build a strong knowledge basis about something, or sometimes to set a common language in specific topics. For example, we use the Enneagram as a tool in the company, not only for recruitment, if not for development. And all the company knows about the Enneagram. Are they specialists in that? No, the HR team is a specialist in that kind of tool, but we share a common language. If not, when you talk about, for example, this person is Enneatype 3, it could be perceived as, what are they telling about me? Why they put me a number? I'm not a number, and this kind of thing. So for set a common language in a specific topics, it's very important to have formal instances. And remember that, as Nikki said, you don't need a huge budget to make this work. No matter the size of the company, you can use the money and the time that you have strategically. Defining actions like assigning new projects or creating this kind of mentorship programs, but with having in mind the impact that you want to have in the person and in the team, and driving growth and continuous learning in all these spaces that you create specifically to develop these new competencies or to upskill the competence.